In this video, I'm going to give you a breakdown of the pros and cons of living here in Salt Lake City and the surrounding area in 2024. I'm super excited to jump into this video. If you've watched my videos before, you'll know that some of these things still make the list as a pro or a con, but some things have changed. So make sure to watch all the way till the end to get the full updated list on my opinion on what the pros are to living here and the cons to living here as well. If you're a first-time viewer here on the channel, thank you for watching this video. I make videos about what it's like to work, eat, sleep, live, and play here along the Wasatch Front. So make sure to check out my other videos. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you for your participation. So with that said, let's jump right into the video here. My name is Cody Steck. We're going to talk about the pros on this list. Number one on our list is going to be the 4 seasons that we get here in Utah. The thing I love about living here in Salt Lake City, Utah is you get a good mixture of weather across the year. In the summers are going to be a little bit hot, but hot enough where you can really enjoy it. And then kind of at the end of summer, you're like, all right, we need to cool this off, right? And you get to the point where, summers are hitting 90 to 100 degrees during June, July, August. So during those summer months, yes, it's going to be hot, but thankfully we don't have a lot of humidity here. So it's very manageable. It's not like on your coastal cities where if you were hitting 95 degrees, you'd be absolutely sweating. Typically, even if it's 100 degrees outside, it is manageable, right? If you can step into the shade, you can cool off a little bit, and it is definitely doable. Now, in the winter, you get the flip side of that. You get winters that are actually very manageable as well. Temperatures are going to get low enough where you do get some, some darker days. You do get some wind. You do get some snow that comes through, and a lot of people really love that. A lot of people love the snowy holidays, and of course, going out and being able to ski, ice climb, snowshoeing, whatever it might be, doing those winter activities. A lot of people really enjoy that. The winters are also very manageable. It's not like some of the other cities around the country or even north of here where if you get some cold weather, it's really unmanageable because of the humidity. Again, with that lower humidity, it makes the weather here in Utah, especially in Salt Lake, very manageable. Temperatures here are going to be generally between the 20s and 30s for most winter days. And every once in a while, you might even get a nice winter day where it's 40 degrees, maybe even high 40s, which is an absolute treat when it does happen during this time. So winters and summers are very nice. The swing months between that, spring and fall are also very nice. We do get some great weather during this time of year. As we jump into number 2 here, guys, drop a comment down below with your questions or your thoughts on what you think about the weather or what you think about these different items. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this subject, whether you think some things are a pro or a con. Everybody's going to have a different opinion. Of course, this is just my list that I want to share with you, but let me know what you think is a pro that should be a con or vice versa. Also, what we're going to talk about next is the job opportunity and low unemployment that we have here in Utah. Job opportunities are massive here in Utah. There are lots of high-paying jobs here in Utah, and even despite what you hear from people, even some people who are going to comment on this video, people are going to say, oh, there's no job opportunities, no jobs are willing to pay that much, this place is so expensive, you can't afford it, nobody pays a living wage. And unfortunately, that's just not true. I don't see that being the case. I actually see lots of job opportunities here, especially in finance, in banking, even in blue-collar jobs, there's a lot of opportunity, and in tech jobs, right? White-collar stuff. There's lots of job opportunities where people are making a lot of money. Sure, maybe it's not as much as you'd like it to be, but there are lots of opportunities here. Utah was actually recently ranked number 8th in the country for the lowest unemployment rate. We're actually sitting at 2.7%. Maryland was number 1 at 1.7% as of right now. But Utah being at 2.7% is extremely low, especially compared to other states like California, New Jersey, Illinois that are sitting closer to 5%. So we're roughly half of that here in Utah. So low unemployment, lots of job opportunities is another positive to living here in Utah. Next up on our list, number 3 here, we're talking about the fair taxes and more of a middle ground culture, politics, and religious diversity that's happening here in Utah. Now, again, if you watched my previous videos, I made this video back in 2023, made it in 2022, 21, 19. I've made this video numerous times, and this list has kind of changed over that time. Right now, I think that taxes here in Utah are actually pretty fair. We charge a 5% state income tax, which yes, it's not 0 like you can get in like Florida, for instance, and it's not 13% like you're going to pay in California for the highest earners. So right now in Utah, it's a flat 5%. I think that's pretty fair across the board. It allows us to operate at a very functional level, and it allows us to be very sustainable, right? You can't just always have, even if you have no income tax, you're going to pay taxes through property tax, right? You always have to pay taxes, and how the state generates that income revenue is going to vary from state to state. But in Utah, they've done a pretty good job about it, in my opinion, with charging taxes that are relative to the economy here, and also something that's kind of fair across the board. I actually am a fan of that, so that's why it makes the list here. Also, I'm adding the middle ground politics and culture and religious diversity that we're starting to see here. Yes, it is getting a little bit mixed. Some people are going to like that. Some people are not going to like that. But overall, I actually kind of think it's a good thing to have a little bit more diversity and a little bit more middle ground across the board when it comes to these things. The culture is kind of leveling out. We're starting to see different cultures come in. We're starting to see different political backgrounds come in. And we're also starting to see a little bit of religious diversity as well. If you came to Utah 50 years ago, it was almost entirely made up of LDS population, whereas now today, there's There's a lot of people who are not part of the church. And again, despite what you're going to hear online, no, this is not a place that is completely run by the LDS Church. The state is becoming incredibly diverse, and there's a lot of people here who consider them Christians, or maybe non-denominational, or maybe even of a completely different religion, or not religious at all, right? There's a huge, vast majority of people who are not participating in any of those religions. And I think overall, that's a good thing. That's why it makes the pros list here today. Next up on our list, we're talking about the outdoor recreation. You cannot come to Utah and not talk about the outdoor recreation that we get here in the state. Utah has one of the best areas or the best playgrounds for getting outdoors. Now, when I say outdoors, of course, everybody, sometimes I get some stupid comments that say, oh yeah, everybody's got access to outdoors. What I really mean by this is access to recreation and to nature, right? We've got the Wasatch Mountains on the east side of the valley. They provide great access for hiking, skiing, climbing. There's so many things to do in those canyons, and they're frankly, maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes away, depending on where you live. So it's easy access to get outdoors. You can also go and do boating activities or swimming or water activities, right? You've got numerous lakes and reservoirs across the state that are very easy to get to, most of them within 30 to 60 minutes of the metro area. You've even got some great options like Lake Powell down in the southern end, or Bear Lake up on the northern end of the state. So getting outdoors and experience the recreation that we've got here in Utah is incredibly easy, and you've got literally every single outdoor activity that you want to do. The only thing we don't have is an ocean, but still, even if you want to go surfing, you can do that behind a boat these days. So outdoor recreation, absolutely bar none, one of the best areas to do that is right here in Utah. Now, quick little mention that I had to throw in here. This was not on the original list, but it just came to me. I just had an interaction with somebody this morning. And, the thing I got to say about Utah is that there's great people here. I think across the board, of course, you're always going to get some bad apples in any area, but across the board, Utah has some of the nicest, best people here in the area, especially in the United States, right? If you go to other third world countries, there are beautiful people out there who are amazing and are great people. But here in Utah, the thing that I hear over and over is when people move here, when people contact me and say, hey, Cody, I'm moving to Utah. I need you to help me find a home, which I love to do. If you're in that position, please reach out to me, call, text, or email anytime. I absolutely love hearing from you guys. Or even if you already live here and you want to buy a house, please reach out. I love being your trusted real estate resource of choice. When people reach out to me and they say, I'm moving here, the thing that they always comment on after having lived here for a couple months is they say, wow, I can't believe how nice people are. People actually acknowledge you. They look you in the eyes. They say hello. They say good morning. They actually acknowledge you when you pass them on the streets or, in a restaurant, or they hold the door for you or whatever, stuff like that. And there's just great people overall. So I had to hurry and add this on the list here. The last thing I want to talk about is a pro, and then we'll jump into the cons. Make sure you stick around for some of these cons, because if you're considering moving here or you already live here and you just want to know what my opinion is on the cons, you're going to want to know some of these things that we're going to talk about. The last positive we have to talk about here on this list is that home prices are down, right? We've seen home prices come down just a little bit. I talk a lot about real estate here on this channel. One thing I have to mention with this right now is that yes, home prices are down, at least for right now. When it comes to home prices, we're down about 5 to 10%, depending on the area, from the all-time highs that we recently saw back in 2022. And I think that going into 2024, those home prices are going to stay roughly where they're at, maybe even increase a little bit. So you might be asking, why is that a pro? Well, I think now, because if you look 5, 10, 15 years into the future, Utah home prices are going to be even higher than where they are today. So I'm not saying you should go out there and buy a home. I'm not trying to convince you to do that. It's a totally personal decision. And even yes, right now, renting is still cheaper than it is to buy in this market by actually a substantial amount. But there's benefits to buying, right? You get your own place, you get tax benefits, you get to pay down a loan. There are still a lot of benefits to purchasing, even despite the higher interest rates and higher prices that we're seeing. Those prices are down a little bit. So I think there's some good opportunity out there if you're smart about it. Reach out to me for more details on that if you'd like to. All right, so now next up, let's talk about some of the negatives that we have to discuss here on the channel when it comes to moving here or living here, what you need to know. Number one on our list is that the area is getting really busy for skiing, national parks, and tourist areas such as Park City, St. George, and Moab. A lot of these areas get national recognition across the board, and people have figured out, hey, Utah is a pretty awesome place to live and to visit. So we're getting tons of tourists, tons of people from out of state and out of the country, and it's getting busy, right? If you want to get up to the ski resorts on a weekend or after a big snowstorm, expect to wait an hour, maybe 2 hours just to get up the canyon, and then you're going to wait in line to get on the field, and you're going to wait in line to, find a good ski run. So things are getting busy. The cat's out of the bag that this is a great place to come and visit or to live. And so that's kind of a negative, right? The city is growing. A lot of people hate that. A lot of people who grew up here are like, man, stop coming to the state. I don't necessarily take that stance. I think people are going to move here whether I have an opinion about it or not. So I'm just here along for the ride. I'd love to help you make that move and purchase real estate or sell real estate along the way. But yeah, definitely getting familiar and knowing that, hey, some of these areas are going to be busy. You just have to kind of really accept that and be ready for that transition as we go into just getting busier and busier over time. Next up, number 2 on our list is that the area has gotten a little bit more expensive, right? Not just regarding home prices, which yes, have gone crazy over the last 3, 4, 5 years, but just the area in general has gotten more expensive, right? Gas is usually a little bit higher here than usual than the rest of the country. And also just going around to restaurants or going to entertainment venues or whatever it may be, going out for a drink, those things have gotten expensive. And I'm sure that's kind of the case across the country, but it really seems to, have impacted us here in Utah. It's because people see the opportunity, they see the people, they see people coming to visit, and prices have gone up because of that. So yes, that is happening across the country. Inflation has been a big topic over the last couple of years. So it's something you can't avoid entirely, but it seems like here in Utah, we've been hit just a little bit harder than some of these other areas. The next thing I want to talk about here is going to be back to the weather, right? We talked about how the weather in the 4 seasons was such a positive here in Utah. One thing that I have to say is actually a negative that I actually really unfortunately don't like. In my personal opinion, winter's like 2 to 4 weeks just too long, right? I'm kind of getting more out of the winter months of enjoyability. I look forward more to the summer months now. But the thing I want to point out as a negative is that the spring and fall months are generally pretty short. It seems like when you're going into, the end of winter, going into the summer, it seems like those spring months are really short. You might only get 1 to 2 months of like really decent weather where you can spend time outside. It's comfortable. You don't have to be bundled up or, take all your clothes off. Those spring months seem to be pretty short. And again, in the fall, it seems like it'll go from being really hot in August and September. And then all of a sudden by October, it's like cold and you got to be long pants and a jacket and a hat, to go outside. Those spring and fall months are pretty short on the weather side. So that's a negative for me and something I wanted to point out. The next thing, I think it's number 4 here on our cons list, is the entertainment can be a little bit lacking here in Utah. Yes, we are a major city. We do have the NBA team of the Jazz. We do have an MLS team, for soccer. We do have some entertainment options. We do get some fairly big concert names and celebrities that come here every once in a while, but we're not going to be on par with, Los Angeles or New York or Miami or Austin, Texas, these other big cities that have way more entertainment options. We're getting there, but we're just not quite there just yet. So that still can be a little bit lacking. If that's something that's important to you, if you do a lot of those things, that might be something to consider. That yes, you'll probably get about 80% of those options, but you're not going to have every option. We don't have a national hockey team yet. We don't have a major league baseball team yet. We don't have a football team yet, right? We do have a lot of access for college teams and the NBA for the Jazz and stuff, but some of those other entertainment options can be lacking, which is a little bit unfortunate. So you're going to have to travel to Vegas or to Denver or to LA for some of those other options like that. Luckily, Vegas is only about 6 hours away for a drive or maybe even a 1-hour flight. So it's easy to do, but still just something to consider. The thing that's next up on our list here is going to be the access to public transportation. Public transportation, again, is not great here. If you're coming from a smaller city where maybe you don't have any public transportation, then sure, it's going to be better. But if you're coming from a major city, yes, we don't have a massive public transportation system. We don't have a subway. We don't have a built out light rail system that can get you all around town in a reasonable amount of time. We do have light rail, but it's just not very viable for most people. You are going to be dependent on a car here, and that's just the reality of the situation. I wish the area is a little bit more walkable as well. Unfortunately, unless you live like right downtown in Salt Lake City, or you live in Daybreak right downtown, or you live in Holiday right downtown, or in Lehi, some of these other cities that have like, 2 or 3 blocks where you can live and really have a walkable atmosphere. If you live outside of that in any capacity, it is just not walkable. You're not going to be walking to the grocery store or the coffee shop or the gas station to grab a quick snack or whatever. It's just not an area that is going to be walkable. The last thing I want to mention kind of on public transportation, and that is going to be travel, right? Here in Utah, we're actually pretty isolated from the rest of the country. Yes, you can fly to different destinations. You can get to California in an hour, or Vegas, or Phoenix, or Denver, or up north. You can get to Seattle in about an hour and a half, maybe 2, depending on weather and stuff. But yes, you can fly to those areas. But if you're driving, you really don't have a ton of access to drive to these other areas. It's not like the Northeast or even the Southeast where you can drive, or even Texas, right? Where you can drive from like major city to major city in like just a couple of hours. Here in Utah, we're pretty isolated. Your next major city is going to be Boise, which is even smaller than Salt Lake actually. And that's about 4 hours away. Denver's, I think, is like 7 to 8 hours. Vegas is like 6 hours. Phoenix and LA and San Diego, those are about 10 or 11 hours from Salt Lake City for a drive. So it can make travel just a little bit difficult in those areas. If you're looking to fly, no problem. We've got an international airport that is fantastic. It's actually brand new as of a couple of years ago. They're still working on it, building out new phases. But if you're looking to drive somewhere, it can be a little bit difficult. Last up, this is a very, very important one. So if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. Give me a thumbs up on the video if you like it, subscribe, and don't forget to drop a comment down below letting me know your thoughts on these subjects. You might agree or disagree with me on these items, but I want to hear your opinion at the very end of the day. This one is incredibly important. We're going to talk about the air quality and inversion. Right now, I'm filming this video in the winter, and the air quality and inversion is hitting us pretty hard this year. We've seen some days where air quality has not been great. We've had the inversion, which is basically just a fancy way of saying that we get this high pressure that comes in over the Salt Lake Valley, even Utah Valley and Davis County. We get this high pressure that comes over and it basically blocks the air in to the valley and doesn't allow it to escape to get fresh air in. So we've got all of these cars and fireplaces and trucks and factories and whatever it might be putting out emissions into the air, and that air is just really not able to circulate and, you know, really provide some clean quality air for us. Now, this is something I've talked about extensively. I actually just made a video recently on this topic where you can kind of see what it looks like on a good day versus a bad day. It's not something that affects us every single day. It kind of comes and goes a little bit throughout the winter. We can get it every once in a while to a minor degree in the summer, but it's mostly during the winter. And this is something that's, you know, kind of a concern. If you've got lung issues, breathing issues, or anything like that, then yes, I think it's a concern for you. I actually had my own brother move away from the area because he couldn't work with the inversion just because of his lungs. He has bad lungs. So it is something that kind of affects us personally, you know, as people. But I think if you're just a normal person, you don't have those issues, yes, you can get through it. Is it ideal? No, not really. But it's just something you kind of have to, you know, it's one of the downsides. It's one of the things you have to compromise on when living here in Salt Lake City, Utah. Next thing I want to talk about is going to be something that actually last year was a negative on the list here, but I'm going to kind of include this in the middle ground, right? So we're talking about the cons, but I'm going to say this is actually almost a pro at this point in time. And I think going into the future, it's going to become more of a positive overall. The thing I want to talk about is going to be the diversity that we see here in Utah. If you look at demographically at the diversity we have here, especially historically, it has not been very diverse, but in recent years and going into the future, it's going to become incredibly more diverse over time, right? We're going to see more people from different backgrounds, different politics, different religions, different cultures, different ethnicities. We're going to see a lot of diversity come into the state. And overall, I think that's probably a positive. I'd say in the past, it's kind of been a negative, but I think having just a little bit more of a mixture provides people to kind of come together and just get a better understanding of different people. And, you know, as long as we can all maintain really good, healthy values and be nice to each other, be kind, and continue to all try to do our best in life, I think that's a really important thing throughout this process. So I love living here in Utah. We've covered a lot here in this video. I think the pros definitely outweigh the cons here on this list. I'm a big believer in the opportunity that's here. The taxes, I think, are very fair, and it's a great place for business owners. It's a great place for job opportunities. And there's just a lot going on here that I think is really beneficial. So if you're looking to make a move here, reach out to me, call, text, or email anytime. My information's here on the screen once more, and you'll find it in the description box below. Before you go, leave a comment on the video. And with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching this pros and cons video of Salt Lake City in 2024. We'll catch you in the next one.